Yeah, sure.
Sweet.
And we can have a look at this one. So I just write it in the chat then.
Yeah, just right. Yeah, perfect. There we go. Sweet. So you were playing the so this game, yeah?
Yeah.
Sweet.
I've been practicing Ursa now
Mhm.
because I think he seems really strong.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think he's one of the strongest carries at the moment. Feels so strong, to be honest. Him and Luna are probably the top two my favorite carries this patch. So I definitely would recommend kind of playing it as much as you can. I mean, I think the matchup between Ursa and Luna is quite favourable to Ursa as well.
That's what I felt this game.
Mhm.
Also, the thing is, I haven't played that much Ursa before this, so there are many lane matchups where I lose my lane because I think I overestimate how strong he is at level 1. I feels kind of weak at level 1, level 2, level 3 maybe.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's kind of similar to Monkey King in the sense that you think you're really strong at level 1 because you have like the passive, but you're not definitely not as strong as you kind of can be. Like level 3 and level 4 is when you start really to peak. But we'll talk about it when I load into the game. But no, yeah, I definitely think, particularly before, because I assume he might get nerfed alongside Luna because that's the kind of the top carries we're sort of seeing in this pack at the moment, just from a competitive standpoint. So I definitely would be looking at. The hero just feels so strong, and particularly I don't know if you go at this build. I didn't check completely, but the Battle Fury build, is really kind of taken off, and it kind of just solves all of Ursa's problems at the moment.
Precisely.
Yeah, I mean, he had such issues with mana regen and farming speed, but Battle Fury kind of cleanses both of those, and then you're able to kind of still fight with it as well. And another nice thing as well is that the level 15 talent with Ursa, normally you were kind of forced to go the mana regen, but with the Battle Fury you can go the agi, which is just really nice. So some extra kind of value altogether. So I really rate him, and it kind of makes Ursa actually a decent late game carry, which normally he'd fall off, but with it he kind of doesn't. So cool. So just load into the game, and then go from there. So
I usually get like there seems to be a lot of people that still don't recognize the Battle Fury build. Like they flame a lot if they see the Battle Fury.
Yeah.
And then they start flaming, especially if you go Shinchen Yasha into Satanic. And I guess perhaps you shouldn't always do that. Like some games, probably you should go Abyssal. Not sure.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, like people, even some of my brackets, people are still kind of slow to respond, but it will come around, and just need to kind of ignore them and go forward. So you're laning with Kotl, obviously this lane. This combo is really strong. Actually, it's something that Secret kind of abused quite a lot with Matuma Man and Puppy, just because of the chakra magic is so valued with the Earth Shock, because it just double Earth Shock is really strong. So most likely you're laning against obviously lone droid techies, because you can assume that, or probably techies or Wind Ranger, or techies and lone droid, depending on who. I think this kind of favours you a little bit, knowing that lone droid is going to be laning against you than Wind Ranger, because you'd struggle to sort of harass the Wind Ranger, but at least this one you can kind of deal with the bear. So in terms of starting items here, I think the starting items are fine. I think because so you're not 100% sure whether it's the lone droid or the Wind Ranger. But the moment you see the lone droid, I definitely would be queuing up the Orb of Venom, just because his bear is really easy to kill as Ursa. And it's like normally whenever you play Ursa, if you're ever against a melee, Orb of Venom is almost always something that you should be looking to get. Some matchups you might want to start with it, but in this one, like I said, wasn't 100% sure whether it was the Wind Ranger or Lone Droid. But in this case, obviously, Lone Droid is ranged, but his bear is the main part of his hero. This is fine. I think you kind of switching up the runes is fine. I think they're actually stronger than you level 1. So this is all.
I think I missed it.
That's fine. I mean, it doesn't matter so much that you missed it. It's just that you went through it, which I think was the right play, to be honest. Because you don't really want to contest with Kotl at level 1 because you're actually not particularly that strong at level 1. So,
I've done that once before this, and then I got blasted, lost
Yeah.
half my life. That's why I started with a salve, because I thought I was going to lose a lot of life
For sure.
early for some mistake or something.
Yeah, for sure. This is definitely the right iron build. I think in some
Start with,
some
but
o-
then buy an Orb of Venom before this. No, after this.
yeah,
sorry.
for sure. I think the first thing you want to be doing is building an Orb of Venom. Like just looking at your kind of stash, or ready to buy. You're
Yeah.
looking to go straight into Magic Stick, or into Magic Wand. Now, normally, if you go Battle Fury, like unless you're actually, firstly, it's not great anyway because of the lane you're in. There isn't going to be a lot of spamming spells. Like techies will blast off occasionally. And then when he does use his mines, he'll most likely use mines in fog, which you won't be able to get your charges anyway. And not only that, but Lone Droid doesn't really use spells for the most part, because he doesn't get Savage Roar till later. But not only that, but normally nowadays, like a lot of the pro Ursas that I've been watching, they don't really need to go the Magic Wand, because previously you needed to go it because you were really suffering on mana. But because of the Battle Fury, you can go things like Wraith Band into Orb of Venom and Windlace. It's kind of your 3 starting items before you build into Battle Fury. And seeing as that you're laning with a Kotl as well, mana regen really won't be an issue in this lane. So it's just kind of a little bit of wasted money for the most part. And obviously like delays your Venom. But as you can see, like you've only hit this Spirit Breaker a few times and it's already quite low. So definitely be looking to hit the Spirit Bearer when possible. Obviously, this is just what Techies does. Looks for a double blast off on you, and there's not really much you can do about it for the most part. So I think for the first wave or two, your kind of mentality in this lane is to get obviously all the easy CS as possible. But also at the same time, you want to be hitting the Spirit Bear whenever it's in this kind of position, because what you want to be doing.
Should I hit it now or?
Yeah. So that's the kind of mentality. So first of all, like techies isn't. So you want to be hitting the Spirit Bear whenever you're not getting hit by the techies, basically. So in a position like this is perfect, because you want to kind of put pressure on this lone droid. If he can put his bear this far up, he feels like he can get all the CS he wants, basically. So you want to kind of force him out of it.
Okay.
So just keep that in mind. Obviously, like CSN is good and all, but like with the kind of reduction in deniers at the moment as well, if you can harass over denying, it's almost more important now than you can. Obviously, in this case, when you're getting hit by Lone Droid and techies, it's not favourable. But whenever you can hit the bear, you should definitely look to do that.
Yeah.
In scenarios like this and stuff, you just want to be dragging creeps, really. It's difficult at the start because obviously you both got hit by blast off, so your support isn't going to be able to help you too much about it.
Yeah.
But this is all kind of normal. Another thing as well is if in scenarios like this where Tech is kind of playing in the trees, and even though his attack damage isn't too much, if you can drag the creeps like above you, like to the north of you up here, and then there's no way the techies can kind of trade unless he overcommits. So something to just think about. But right now you're just going to be trading region for CS, which is fine. Like your CS is top. It's top. Kotl should be blasting for the range creeps. There's not much you can really do to commit onto the range creeps, because if you commit your Earth Shock, you're kind of out of position. But this is all fine. I'm just going to speed up.
I don't think I should shock for the range creep.
I mean, obviously in scenarios, it depends obviously on the scenario. Like, it's not like a simple thing as you should always do it, because if say you're like all your creeps are dead and Lone Droid and techies are like hitting you while you do it, if you commit to your Earth Shock and you like get blast off and then root, you're just gonna die. But in scenarios where it's contestable, yeah, for sure. But for the most part, if you have a support that can secure range creeps, it's normally their job to do it because they can normally do it without committing too much. But obviously, it's important that it happens. Obviously, just a little bit poor courier usage. I do the same, to be honest. My courier usage is kind of poor, but it just happens. One thing that definitely has helped me before. Let me just talk about the courier before we talk about this. One thing that's helped me with my courier usage is it's a small thing, but once you start doing it, it does really help. So as we saw here, your courier kind of like ran round. Obviously, we went down to the hard camp here, but I like to do is actually shift queue it. So have my courier, like say, run to just behind the tower and then shift queue it to me. Because that way what happens is that the courier will always run to the tower first before it starts changing things elsewhere. Because sometimes what ends up happening is like this, where it will run around and then it will choose to where it goes, and basically it's just out of position. But it's a small thing, like just shift queue it before. As for
Do you shift
go on.
queue it to drop items, or do you shift queue it to
Just to
run
yourself.
to you?
Yeah, so I'd
Okay,
shift queue the movement towards the tower and then elsewhere. Because if you start like you can't always be checking where your courier is because you're focused on the creeps and elsewhere. But if you do a small thing of like just shift queuing your courier to the tower and then to you, you know that it's going to have in a somewhat of a more safe position than if it just walks into the jungle like aimlessly. So just something to think about. In this case here, when you're trying to hold creeps, obviously to wait for your next creep wave. In
and I
scenarios,
realized too late that he's pulling.
yeah.
But
So
I'm guessing I'm doing something wrong anyway.
yeah, and then so in scenarios like this, like if we just go back to when it originates, kind of noticed. So it's about like 3 minutes here. You have a whole creep wave hitting his creeps, as well as he has a whole creep wave here. So the best thing you can really do is just bring this creep wave down here. Obviously, you can't safely CS here, but that's not necessarily what you want. What you want is for this lane to be pushed, and if you grab the creep wave that you have here onto the second one, it will eventually push anyway. And obviously, because your Kotl is about to pull as well, like you're going to miss 2 or 3 CS on this creep wave here. And so like you're just waiting here, just kind of aimlessly waiting for a creep wave, and in the meantime, like you're going to have 2 CS kind of denied while you're waiting for your own creep wave that's not going to come. Obviously, the wave does push, but in the meantime, you've kind of missed 2 CS. Whereas maybe if you drag the pool creep wave, it might have been thing. So, but that's understandable. So for sure, we talked obviously about the magic wand, not really necessary in this lane, but definitely you want to be building into boots first. In scenarios like this right now, movement speed is king, because if you have movement speed, like you can kill the bear, you can threaten the lone droid. So it's definitely something you want to do. And a small note as well. This is very rare because you don't always lane with a coal. But normally you will always want to have level 2 fury swipes because of the double in damage. It goes from 9 attack to 18, so it's a really valuable second point to have. But in lanes with Kotl, and you can kind of abuse you can use your Earth Shock. Normally a lot of the pros are putting 2 points in Earth Shock just because it has more than double in the slow, so it goes from 10% to 25%, so it's a really big slow. And we talked about obviously the importance of having boots and movement speed. So if you're able to kind of get on top of them and slow them down, like you can threaten a kill for sure. And obviously Kotl is going to be giving you mana. So
I'm not really hitting the bear in this lane because I haven't played this matchup. I'm not really sure if the bear just kills me if he roots me.
Yeah, I mean, you need to be worried. You need to be kind of a little bit afraid when Techies is hitting you as well. But if it's just you and the lone droid and the bear's hitting you, be more than willing to man up on it. And in that scenario, like having 2 points and fury swipes is obviously better if you're trading with it. But it's just something I wanted to mention because there was another Ursa player that I was coaching that went the other way around, where he went 2 points in Earth Shock.
I saw that one.
Oh, okay, yeah. But he didn't have the Kotl in that game, so it's slightly different scenario. But yeah, so like,
did wrong.
Yeah, but so obviously, if in this case, like if the lone droid is kind of running at you, don't be afraid to just man up on the bear. Obviously, if Techies is with him, then you can't. But don't be too afraid, because obviously for the first 5 minutes, like this lone droid hasn't felt threatened at all. And like he's on the same CS as you, and that kind of shows that he's not really threatened in terms of harassment. Yeah.
I'm giving him too much in this.
Yeah. But at the same time, you're CSing good as well, which is fine. It's just something that you could definitely think about doing as well. Because even if you have to buy a bit more regen, it's definitely worthwhile, because the lone droid doesn't really want to buy regen for his bear. In some scenarios he might resummon the bear, but if you end up killing the bear that second time, it has like 2-minute cooldown and you've just won the lane like that. So you should definitely look to try and threaten the bear if possible. I mean, like, it's taken half HP without you really focusing on trying to hit it, but if you hit it as well, it can do it. Can do a lot of work, kind of thing. And so particularly when the Cottle is obviously with you, like definitely look to threaten, which you're doing here. So you're building into treads, which is fine. And obviously, if you're going the battlefield build, treads is definitely the way forward. But just for kind of pure value sense, I really do like to good man up here on the techies because he's only uses blast off. And this actually just gonna, I mean, you end up killing him, which is good. But I was just gonna mention how I want you to kind of have a strong inventory before you start. Like, view treads is almost luxury in some ways because it's kind of a big investment. It's like 1,400 gold. A lot of Ursas are like building these small items just to really help them in their lane because Ursa's such a strong laner, and if you end up building items like Windlace or Orb of Venom, we talk about the Orb of Venom, but the Windlace I think is something that's really, really important, particularly if you're going treads. And in a scenario like this, obviously you get given the gloves of haste here, but if you have the Windlace, like you can catch and stay on top of this techies before you reach the tower. Obviously you're fine and you don't die, and you end up killing the techies anyway, but it's like you're one hit away just because of you're running away. But obviously, if Lone Droid had his bear on top of you while you're hit under the tower, like you could die there. But you get out, which is fine and stuff. But the gloves of haste is it's useful, but it's definitely probably not as good as
Would
the
you have
Windlace.
gone the same item build, but then you would have not gone the wand? You would have gone Orb of Venom first, and then you would have gone Windlace.
Yeah, Windlace or Wraith Yeah, so
then Windlace.
Yeah, so I would have completely skipped the magic wand. I would have went Orb of Venom to start with, and then depending on whether I felt dominating in the lane in terms, so like either you want to go boots or Wraithband. Wraithband would be able to help you man up against the bear because you'd obviously hit faster, attack speed, yada yada. But if you're not really, if
your attack speed is not that good with Ursa. Last taping.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that like right now because people are building this Battle Fury build, like you want to have a Wraithband because it's just very valuable. Like 6 agi and 5 attack speed, that's like 11 attack speed. Plus obviously the strength and instance is just nice as well for the overall stats. So if you're trading with the bear, the Wraithband is kind of just more useful than the boots. But if you're like chasing the bear, then obviously boots before. But definitely Orb of Venom, and then either Wraithband or boots. And then depending on whether you go the Wraithband, then obviously you go the boots after, or if you go the boots first, then the Wraithband after, and then the Windlace, and then build into treads and Battle Fury. Because then you have your three build-up items, which I think as a carry is so important to have. The general standard is normally like maybe 2 Wraithbands and a magic wand. But on different heroes like Ursa, that could be Wraithband, Orb of Venom, Windlace, and those are the 3 build-up items because, if you don't have these items, you're kind of wasting and missing out on item slots. So, like in this case, like if you have a Windlace, when you're building towards your Battle Fury, like you'll have that Windlace for like 30, 40 minutes into the game. So like right now you've got 3, which is really value, like for 250 gold, and for a hero that really requires movement speed, it's really, really nice, The one.
Would you go with
go on.
Orb of Venom?
Yeah, I'd go Windlace and Orb of Venom, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Just because not only is it good in the lane, because we talked about like the melee hero, which is the Spirit Bear, but it's also really good in the game in the sense of who you'll be focusing in team fights. So I talked about how the matchup between Ursa and Luna is really nice, and those items just help you if you're going for these early team fights. Having Windlace and Orb of Venom is really nice to just stick on Luna because she has no way of escaping you if you have those items, So it's something just to think about. The one, and you see how easy you kill that bear.
Here I realize that it's not that difficult.
Yeah,
to kill
but that comes from experience stuff. The one exception where you perhaps wouldn't be building these kind of small items like Wraithband, Orb of Venom, or Windlace is that if you had a complete free lane, so say like your team decides to try lane and you're against a solo offlaner, then obviously rushing the Battle Fury would be better because then you can just accelerate your farm. But in a game where you're actually kind of contested a little bit in the lane, it makes sense,
Yeah.
So, playing this lane for the first sort of 6-7 minutes is fine, but there'll come a time where you kind of will feel a little bit threatened. Obviously, you're manning up on the bear, which is fine. It's just that there there might come a time where it might be easier just to rotate into the offlane, just because of perhaps you're feeling threatened or getting too much harassed by the techies. Like techies like level 6 now, so is the lone droid as well. Ursa normally is a hero that can really sit in his safe lane and kind of defend it for a long time and relieve a lot of pressure. But the problem is with Techie's blast off. If he blasts off you from the fog before you get a chance to enrage, like you can be silenced for 4 or 5 seconds, which can kind of offer you a death kind of thing. But Beastmaster rotates top for some reason. But if that's going to be the case, then you're more than welcome to stay up here as well. But you can kind of see like how much damage you're kind of taking just from the techies. In this case, obviously your Beastmaster dies.
I'm going on the bear there instead. I think he stuns Druid, but he goes on the bear, I think.
I mean, it's just kind of an awkward rotation from Beastmaster, and this is kind of where it's important to have an understanding of that whole game in terms of the offlaner's point of view as well. Because if you can understand the offlaner's point of view, you can understand what you want to be doing as well. So in this game, really, like Beastmaster wants to stay in his lane until he takes this tower, and then he can start rotating elsewhere. But I mean, it looks like he kind of lost his lane quite handedly. Like Luna's level 8, he's level 6. Obviously, the CS is completely different. And in scenarios like this, where you don't feel particularly great to stay in your own safe lane because of what I said about techies, don't be afraid to rotate into the enemy offlaner. And with him, like you can push the Luna out or even kill her if she decides to stay. And I've talked about.
I should check for Beastmaster level
kind
6
of thing
when he's got ulti, and then I TP bot.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's only that's. I mean, it's one of those things where in an ideal scenario, like from a very basic standpoint, in every game you want your offlaner to win and take that tower, and that obviously kind of goes from the same mindset of the enemy offlaner. So a hero like Ursa can be useful because he can relieve a lot of pressure and stay in his safe lane and defend it for quite something like Lifestealer is another one of as well. But in this case where you kind of need this tower to be taken, because this is the first tower. The offlane tower is really the first tower that needs to be taken in terms of the kind of formula of how Dota is played. Because if the tower stays up, then your whole team is restricted to your side of the map. You can't really make plays elsewhere. So if you need to help the offlaner, and in this case you kind of do because Beastmaster is kind of struggling, your TP can really reset a lot of different things. Because with your TP, Luna will feel threatened to stay in his safe lane, and then he'll probably rotate to your safe lane, and that will kind of change him.
I think I rotate bot soon. I'm not sure. Not that soon, perhaps. And I realized that even if I'm like 2 or 3 levels below her, I still think she feels threatened, I think.
Yeah, and that's just kind of the nature of the hero. Obviously, Wind Ranger is rotated top, so you're going to rotate to the jungle, which is fine.
This is really bad.
No, I mean, this is kind of the only play you have at the moment, because Beastmaster's just died. So if you TP'd bot,
I should have gone bot.
Yes, before you should have. So but right now your scenario is nothing. You have no other choice but to jungle. But if you go back maybe a minute to what we were talking about, if you were there like with your supports, then you can box out the Luna, because until you get the Battle Fury, you actually jungle quite slowly as Ursa. So you'd be more useful to be kind of rotating to another lane. Obviously now your supports are kind of busy stacking, and Phoenix is taking mid and Beastmaster is dead. If you go bot, you might be able to kind of protect this tower and stuff, but you can't do too much about it. This scenario now is a bit different because Beastmaster is bot and so is Zeus as well. So there's no way Luna can kind of stay here. And not only that, but the enemy team is pressuring your safe lane. So right now you need to trade. But I mean, obviously you're low HP, low mana, so you're not really too useful. So even if you go bot, you're not going to be too much of a threat. But it's just
baited by the stack.
Yeah, it just kind of keep in mind like kind of how the formula of the game should go. Ideally, the enemy offlane will take the will take this lane, and then you can rotate and farm. I mean, we've talked about the dead lane concepts obviously, and how it kind of benefits you and stuff. Ursa is a little bit of an exception, but overall, if you're going this kind of Battle Fury build where you're more of a carry style, then you do want to be playing that kind of style where you're, taking. Because right now, this is the worst case scenario where you're losing your safe lane tower, and you're not trading theirs. Obviously, you TP bot, which is fine.
It's 2 minutes too late.
But yeah,
It's
it
3
is a
minutes,
couple
so-
minutes too late. Obviously, Luna looks like she doesn't want to contest you anyway, which is fine. But right now, the enemy team could look to defend because they'll most likely take your tower, and then because you're not here, not pressuring it in time, they can defend it, and then you're back to kind of square one, but without a safe lane tower.
Yeah.
So it's just something to think about. Obviously, Zeus is here. You can throw it in the Luna, which is good, which you do. And that's kind of an easy kill, and that's all you need really is that +1, and that's how much you threaten the Luna,
Yeah.
and that's the kind of the strength of your hero. So you're pressuring this tower. This is fine. I think particularly when you go this Battle Fury build, you don't really want to be playing too much in terms of like looking for early fights. Like you're really the only kind of scaling hero in terms of physical damage, so you want to let your team do your thing. Obviously, Luna rotates bot, and now you're by yourself, so that you have really no choice but to kind of reset. Now this comes back to obviously your team probably not playing the right part of the map at the moment, but also again to the importance. You see how important this tower. Like if this tower is taken, then the game is kind of wide open. But now, like every single time, like this tower is being up, it just kind of delays and makes it really awkward for you as a carry because now you're like, oh, where do I lane? Where do I go and stuff? You might be all right. Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah, I survived.
But it's just kind of awkward.
It was lucky that I didn't man up on. I
Yes.
was thinking about killing Witch Doctor, but that's a good.
No,
decision
yeah,
not
for
to do
sure,
that.
for sure. And it looks like he ends up walking up high ground. And
Should I engage in this fight? That I was thinking about jumping on Luna here.
yeah, I mean,
I don't have any range.
Yeah, it's difficult because you don't really necessarily know where the other ones is. If you know it's just the Luna, like Techies isn't showing, neither is the Wind Ranger. You see Lone Drawn on the sword, but you don't really know where Wind Ranger is. If you knew where all the enemy heroes were, then I think you can, because really the only thing that really threatened you was the Eclipse. Well, obviously the Eclipse is used. And then the Lunar Bee as well. So when that happens, I think maybe you can man up. But I think it was the safe play, and the safe play is always never a bad thing to do, particularly when you don't have information elsewhere and stuff. I think a small thing, but like right now, I'd definitely be hitting lane creeps instead of neutrals, just because Luna is low, so she's not going to be there. Wind Ranger is showing on lane, and now Lone Druid is showing as well. And it's a small thing. Like normally, you always want to prioritize lane creeps when you can. Obviously, when you can't and there's no lanes for you to push or relieve pressure, then sure, hit jungle creeps. But it's a small thing. But when you have catapult up as well, 5-10 seconds can be another like 200 damage onto a tower, which we've talked about how important. Like right now, you want to be taking this tower, but like it's almost too late to be taking it by yourself, and pressuring it, because now the game is wide open for them. For Radiant, it's wide open; they can play what they want. But you are kind of forced back to the jungle because you want this tower to be taken, but not exactly sure where everyone is.
Okay, should I back here? Why am I backing here? Because I don't see anybody on the map. Maybe.
Yeah, sure. I think the thing that you need to. I think you should be kind of playing this map at this side of the map and kind of pushing this wave in. But you should never force it, in the sense that if someone shows up, you should immediately leave because you're too kind of threatened. I think the thing that you're most threatened by is really like a Wind Ranger rotation, because because no one else can really catch you. Like if you see someone and you just walk away with Earthshock, like they won't be able to catch you in time. So I think you should kind of farm here, because you want this lane to be pushed in, because even though we talked about how important this tower is, but you don't have to even hit the tower, but if you just push the wave in, the creeps will do it for you, kind of thing. And again, this just goes back to lane creeps over neutrals.
Can we go back like 20, 30 seconds then?
Sure.
I leave the safe lane over there.
Yeah, so right now, like you're low and you go obviously. So and this rotation's just a bit different. So if you went lane creeps then neutral creeps, then you could kind of rotate back. But because you went neutrals and then lane, it just changes the timing a little bit, if that makes sense. Because obviously what you want to do is push the wave in and then fall back to neutrals. But because this hard camp's kind of farmed, you're kind of forced to instantly go back. Whereas if you go lane creeps then neutral creeps, then you can go back to lane. But if you go neutral lane, you can't go neutral lane, if that makes sense.
can I really go up to this wave here now then? Because who do I have vision of here?
So you see Wind Ranger mid for a little bit, but
Yeah.
like I said, this one I can understand you going back to Ancients because you know Luna is probably somewhere around. So if you get hit by Lucent Beam and then Wind Ranger, you're probably going to die. So I think this one is fine, but it's just kind of the order you do it. Obviously, Catapult's hitting the tower as well. Obviously, when this happens and when this lane pushes up, then like
I should
now,
be there.
yeah, now is where you want to be.
Should be.
And it's like kind of you have to think about travel
Yeah.
time as well, you know. But you know you're farming your Battle Fury, like your timing isn't too bad. It's just like these small efficiency things would like you're not going to be able to outfarm a Luna until you get Battle Fury. Luna, and obviously Luna had a very good lane as well. You need to remember. But you rotate bot,
Yeah.
obviously defend the tower, and we'll fast forward this a little bit. I think the level 10 talent is good. I think the health is really nice. I think both are very good. To be honest, so your team's taking
Do
a
I
fight.
go the other talents?
I think in games where you're almost forced to keep changing targets, I think the reset timer is nice. But I personally I like the health talent because normally you don't go too much kind of build up in terms of stats early. Obviously S and Y is something later, but the 175 talent health is nice. But you have to remember that like the 20-second reset time is like double your Fury swipe. So anything that has double value is normally very good. I like both. But in perhaps in games where, and it's hard to kind of even gauge when that would happen, but in games where you might feel that you need to kind of go on one target, switch to another, or they're kind of just kiting you and you never get a chance to fully commit on one target, the reset timer can be nice because the stacks will there for 40 seconds. So, you know, in a team fight, most team fights will last, you know, less than 40 seconds. So you'll always have swipes on people. But this is fine. Like, there's no need for you to get involved here. You want to be playing this part of the map. It's just unfortunate that the tower wasn't taken earlier because then you'd have like their neutrals to be farming as well. Obviously, you're going to try and sort of set up here with your team as well, which is fine. Kind of come in onto the bear, you get roared. This is all good though. Kind of kill on the bear, really nice. That jumps your net worth up completely. So you have your Battle Fury now as well. Yeah. And obviously, you need to remember, like, that gold you get is saving the lane as well. So, like, 300 gold now is huge. You see how much you jump to net worth. But if you was able to get a kill on the bear in the lane, it'd be even better, you know.
Yeah.
So I'll just talk about neutral items here. I think obviously normally always the tier 2 items are always better. But I think maybe this game the Broomhander is really nice because you don't really suffer too much with. Actually, forget that. I think the Dragon Scale is nice because the armor is pretty good early on.
Slow?
Yeah, it doesn't slow. It doesn't slow. It does burn, I guess, and it affects buildings. But I mean, if it slowed, it'd be really good. But the Broomhander is really nice because of the attack range, like, and the damage and armor and stuff. Everything you need. But I'm okay with it. I mean, there's probably going to be another tier 2 item that will be useful anyway.
Yeah.
So you try and set up a kill here. This is fine. I feel like with Ursa or with Battle Fury, I feel like if there's an opportunity to engage, particularly where you're tipping into a fight, I think it's fine. You're not like an anti-mage that just wants to farm. Like, you can farm and fight at the same time because of the Battle Fury. And this is, again, where kind of a wind lace is really nice because it just helps you, you know, do everything you want. And it's so cheap and you have the slots available, you know. So, again,
you use the lifesteal?
I think over the Dragon Scale for sure. I think I'll just talk to you about a few neutral items that are really nice on Ursa. So Iron Talon I think is one of the best on any melee carry, just because it allows you to farm Ancients, and attack speed and the armor is kind of nice just if you're farming creeps anyway. But if you can't go, if you don't get a chance for Iron Talon, Fader Brooch is amazing on Ursa because that's the same reason why you'd be building Windlace, because the movement speed just allows you to do everything. Arcane Ring is actually quite good if you don't have mana sustain like Kotl, because you know it's such a great item. Like
Mm.
for a hero that uses mana, like if you're maxing out Earthshock, which you are, helps you farm. And then as for tier 2, like if you're fighting a lot, Essence Ring can be good. Similar if you don't have any kind of mana regen, because the 425 HP in fights is huge. Obviously, Aquila, again, a bit of mana. Vambrace is okay, and the Clumsy Net can be really, really good, because you can ensnare people and then obviously take it off yourself with Enrage, and it gives mana regen as well. So a few nice items to that.
You can dispel the net.
Yeah, you can dispel the net with Enrage. So like if you're
Okay,
chasing someone,
cool.
you can kind of net someone and you not be netted, just through use of Enrage, which can be quite nice. But you're playing the right part of the map, like you're farming well. I feel there's definitely a timer with Ursa in terms of how he's farming, particularly. I mean, to be honest, I feel like Radiant Ursa is better in general because of as a carry, like this is the kind of part of the map you always play because of the dead lane concept. But playing Radiant Ursa allows you to play that right part of the map, but also be near Roche. So in a fight like right now, okay, where you've just killed the enemy carry, if you're like right next to here, like because you're playing that part of the map, you can maybe even sneak a Roche. Because
without lifesteal. Just do it with my Enrage.
Yeah, if you have Battle Fury and if you have good enough farm, like you don't necessarily need HP regen. Sorry, you don't need lifesteal. And obviously, if you have other heroes helping you, then you can definitely do it. I mean, this game is going to be a little bit more difficult because you're playing into a techie, so you don't know if he has mines and things like this. But it's definitely something to think about, and that's why Radiant Ursa is just really nice. But right now, obviously, there's not much else you can do but carry on doing what you're doing, kind of thing. Keeping this lane kind of pushed in. I think definitely I'd probably look to take the Essence Ring, just because you can pop it when the Techie's bombs go off on the status trap. So like if you don't have Enrage, it's an extra bit of burst and HP. Just something to think about. And if you're playing kind of solo, like you're not going to be able to get too many chakra magics from the Cottle anyway. So it's something to think about.
What I'm doing now is pretty bad, right?
Not necessarily, because you did one rotation of the neutrals here, and Lone Droid showed up bottom. So this farming rotation is actually fine. Obviously, the next thing I want you to do is obviously push in this lane here, but your rotation is actually not too bad, to be honest. Like you can't push out a wave, because the only wave you want to be pushing in is bottom, and Lone Droid was there, and you don't know who else is behind him and stuff. So I'm just going to go up on player perspective. I think like this camp probably not necessarily needed, just because you have people that could farm it in mid lane, and definitely wouldn't be farming these ancients because Lone Droid's left bot.
Go straight to the wave.
Yeah, straight to the wave, just because like pressure over everything basically. Like you always want to be looking at waves. The only time you like you don't want to be thinking about farming waves is that either it's dangerous because say Lone Droid's there, and you don't know who else is behind him, or that every lane is in a good position. By that I mean like every wave is pushing into their tower. Then offshore, yeah, if you've got nothing else to do, then hit neutrals. But definitely prioritize thinking elsewhere. I feel when you get your S and Y. I think there's nothing wrong per se with just kind of farming, because you're like I said when you get your Battle Fury, you're going to be farming as fast as Luna. Obviously, before Luna was like 1,000 net worth above you because that's just the nature of the hero. But when you get it, you farm very fast. But I feel like particularly when you get one item off the Battle Fury, normally it is the S and Y, but sometimes it's Basher depending on the game. I think this one is fine to go S and Y because you haven't got a windlace and the movement speed is really nice from S and Y. But I'd look to be perhaps trying to fight with my team, just because this is kind of a higher concept where you'll see it in Immortal games where a carry finishes a big item timing, whether it be a BKB or some other time, and then they'll instantly smoke and look to fight with a team. And I feel like this is something that you could do, because if you think about it, like the enemy team is probably going to scale a little bit better than you because they have kind of a semi carry in the off lane being the Lone Droid, and they obviously have a good farming carry as well. So looking to kind of put pressure and use your spells if you have them available. In this case, you have Cottle ulti, Phoenix ulti, and Beastmaster. And they
should we smoke now?
I'd get the S and Y, just because you've already got your Ogre Axe. So it's not like it's like valuable to just finish it. It's like, oh, I've got this item timing now. Push with this powerful spike I've just got. But your team won't fight as 5 until you group up with them, kind of thing. So just you have to communicate that with your team. I mean, ideally, the ideal how the kind of formula would go is you do what you're doing right now. You push in bot lane, and then someone TP's bottom, and then you'd be like, "Yo, I've got my let's go smoke," because then you're smoking into a 5 versus 4, and then that will be really useful. But this, what you're doing right now is fine. This is kind of like the standard. This is the natural thing you want to be doing. And
me backing up here is bad because now I don't see anyone bot. I mean, know why.
I think because normally in higher tier games, your team would be playing kind of with you in this Radiant jungle, because the only people that have, I mean, obviously Wind Ranger is just shown. So in this case, but if we go back, 30 seconds or so, like you don't see Wind Ranger right now, and it's just you down below, and the wave gets pushed like very close to their tower. So to me, like you've kind of done your job, right? You've pushed in this wave, you've created pressure for the enemy and Radiant team. If now, ideally, like if if you watch any pro games, or if you watch higher tier pub games, your team will be playing behind you in this area, because that's where the part of the map they want to play.
Because they could fight.
Exactly, so they can fight, and if you win that fight and take a fight here, then you have an easy objective to take. Whereas your team are playing in your own safe lane, which is kind of a bad place to fight, because even if you fight and take a team fight and you win the team fight, there's no real objective to push. Like you don't really take this off lane tower. So obviously, because of all what's happened, like this wave gets pushed in, which is fine. You go and farm the jungle. This is all good. You ask, obviously, should I be farming this wave here? Right now, you can't really, because you don't necessarily see, like, you just get a glimpse of Wind Ranger here, but you don't obviously know that's going to happen. So if you push up to this creep wave with no one behind you, then you can just die. If your team's behind you, however, then yeah, for sure, push in this wave, because you're creating pressure. And if there's enemy team tries to go on you, then you can force a fight, and it's a good place to fight, But right now, it's it's not, so you have to kind of work around it. You could maybe think about, the moment you see Wind Ranger, perhaps you can look immediately to go back bottom, because your choices really are either to create pressure or join the fight. But the fight's kind of already over for the most part. Beastmaster TV's out. Because right now you're not obviously defending mid a little bit, but it's just those things to think about, Obviously, perhaps now, I talked about obviously you want to maybe fight straight after S and Y, but Phoenix ulti is down, and so is Beastmaster. So you're almost forced back into the same routine of, okay, I need to push out waves, yada yada yada, do my regular farm rotation, because your farming rotation is good. It's just thinking about, okay.
I think I'm calling for a smoke now. I think we go smoke bot here.
Yeah, because this is a good thing as well. So obviously you want to be pushing in this wave all the time, and we talk about the dead lane concept. But if you think about it from the Radiant point of view, they shouldn't really be farming this safe lane, because this is like the most dangerous part. That's the same reason why you don't play your own safe lane, because it's dangerous part. Yeah, like the tier 1 tower is down. The distance for the next TP support is the tier 2, which is very far away if you're pushing up here, and obviously the shrine, but the shrine is 6-second TP. So if there was ever a time to smoke, it's now onto this lone droid, because he's alone and there's no support for him to go. So that's an opportunity to smoke and fight. And it's not even a full-on 5-on-5 engagement, because you don't really necessarily want to take a 5-on-5 engagement, because Phoenix ulti and Beastmaster ulti is dead. But smokes can be used just for single pickoffs, But you smoke, again, this is a good part of the map to go. And this is it. It's a simple kill onto the lone droid. He's well out of position, and he's obviously mad as well. And you end up catching the Luna as well. So this is the perfect scenario. This is all good.
I think, but if we didn't get these 2 kills, like, because after this the game gets really easy, I feel.
Yeah.
I felt up until this point, I felt that the game was really, like, I didn't know how it was going versus Luna.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, your farming rotations were good, and like I said, the moment you get Battle Fury is the moment you kind of start being on par with her in terms of farming speed, because your rotations are good. It's just that that's all. Your rotations are all standard. Like, that's not necessarily going to win you the game. The thing that's going to win you the game is kind of playing with your team and smoking with them. Obviously, if you have no farm and you're useless in terms of them in team fights, then yeah, you're going to lose the game. So it's like, it's your duty to kind of keep up farm and keep waves pushed in, but really the big difference really will be these team fights. But these team fights can only happen if you're doing your job as well. So it's kind of, there's a lot of things interweaved, interconnected. I definitely, you have Zeus, so you have ways to sort of spot into this. Slow this down a little bit. So you're obviously going to be able to get Roche because Luna is showing bottom. So this is a free Roche for you, which is good. And now, the game gets like a little bit easier, obviously, because now you have Roche. So now, instead of it just being your regular rotation of, okay, I'm just going to farm, now you have Aegis, you want to be forcing the objective you have. Which doctor ends up dying, obviously, and if you see anyone, you want to just get a chance to run at them.
Looking for the Luna here, I think.
Yeah.
It's perhaps a waste of time.
Perhaps, but if you, I don't know exactly. If you just go back, like where, so we know Luna revives and instantly TP's bot. I feel, and this is where TP rotations are kind of really important, or understanding who's TP'd where. So like Luna just died and has just respawned, so and then she immediately shows bottom. So obviously you're taking Roche, and it's something hard to keep in mind, but just try, if you can, even if you're doing something important as Roche, to keep an eye on other things. So if you see Luna bottom, you have to know that she's TP'd bottom. And this is a terrible TP, because right now she's TP'd bottom, and there's nowhere else for her to go now because she's TP'd bottom.
How do we punish that? Should we go up there triangle?
Yeah, so right now, the best thing you should do right now is push through mid and just run at her bottom. Like you kind of have the right instincts, but you don't kind of execute it perfectly. So right now, I'd push in bot and run in and just run at bot, because there's nowhere else she can be, because she's just TP'd, right? So even if you don't necessarily see her, like she has to be bottom because she has no escape. You have Aegis, and obviously you kind of look for these camps here, but she's just a little bit to the right. But if you run at her here, like she's going to die because she has no way of getting out. You have Aegis and your team can TP as well.
And I should just tell everybody just run at Luna.
Yeah, basically, I would like be telling my team just run at her and find her, because like you've cut off any kind of response from her team because you pushed in mid, and not only that, but you kind of want to keep bot pushed in as well, because you don't want to give them an out. Like you want to, now you've got Aegis, you want to kind of hem them into the base. And so you just want to be kind of, ideally you'd have a smoke, because you could just smoke through, and obviously then she wouldn't be able to see if she had any wards, and you'd get there faster and stuff. But that's from a more of a support standpoint, really. But for sure, right now, like I'm pushed in mid, bot needs to be pushed in, and I would just be running to try and find her. Obviously you don't, and she backs off. But because all you want to do now is just trying to find a way to get a fight happen. Obviously, it's in this case it's nice that they end up this win rate just shows off, but like one of the best ways to force a fight is to keep waves pushed in, because if waves are pushed in, the enemy team has nowhere else to go but back to their base basically, and that's going to force them into a certain position. So like pushing in mid and running bot to push in bot as well is a good way, but now, like you said, the game is a lot easier because it's like they don't really want to necessarily fight you. I think going up higher ground is good because Luna's not really showing. They use Fort and slow you down. Luna, I think when Luna shows up here, I definitely would be a little bit worried because you're not with your Beastmaster either. And I think this patch as well, going high ground is just dangerous really, unless you have like a very, very, very large lead. In some ways, I feel the best way to play carry now, particularly when you have Aegis, is you want to be looking to kind of break high ground really normally on your second Aegis. The first Aegis is normally to get map control, and you've got map control right now for the most part because you forced Luna to TP back to base, so you know where she is. So all now you need to do is kind of back off, push up mid and push up top, and then you can kind of get wards up and keep her in her base, and then wait for the next rotation. But right now it's a bit dangerous, obviously, like a Beastmaster isn't with you, and this is kind of...
I think we were a bit lucky here that didn't die.
Zeus, like if Zeus dies there, like that team fight could be completely different, Obviously it's a bit easier now that Lone Drawn is dead, but I think this is okay because now you have a large advantage now. Obviously you still have Aegis, and now you're 5 versus 4, So this is fine.
Yeah.
I just saying before that it could go bad, you know.
I agree. We shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
We should push in mid, as you said.
But this is all kind of good, I think. You're kind of forcing the thing 5 vs 4, and the towers did as well. It just it's a lot easier. But obviously, like techies is still annoying and dangerous, as you can still hear. I mean, that's more on the Beastmaster than you, to be honest. But
yeah.
The one downside of Ursa is he's not the greatest tower pusher, as you're kind of seeing. But this fight is good for the most part. He didn't get could have maybe got could have been raged there.
I don't know what I did.
But yeah, it happens though. It's still alright though. You end up killing the Luna. Looks like you're gonna secure Rex anyway.
I think this is why Kotal gets the MVP also.
Yeah.
He gets the last hit.
All right. Oh yeah, Pog. One more.
Sick.
Nice. Definite worth. But yeah, so like you could see like how pushing high ground, even though you were up by quite a bit, it's still dangerous to go high ground unless you like execute it perfectly, which is not really going to happen in pubs, you know, for the most part. So
yeah.
And the worst thing you want is to like have all your good and hard work kind of go to waste because of one failed high ground push, you know. But you get the racks anyway. It worked out in the end. I feel. So you're going Satanic, which I think is okay because I feel like the HP you get from Satanic is useful. I feel like perhaps if this game was a little bit closer, I feel like maybe Basher might be just a little bit better because, I mean, you haven't really had to have a real 5-on-5 engagement where everything's even. Because if in a regular team fight, Luna will be causing a lot of problems to your team, and if you have Basher, you can just zone in on her and force her out of the team fight or kill her with the Basher. But with the
how would you build that?
So I would do the exact same thing. I'd definitely go Battle Fury and Sange and Yasha, but then Basher instead of the Satanic. I mean, and even if you wanted, you could have gone Morbid Mask and then Basher. But going straight for the Satanic.
What do you think is ideal then?
I think ideal, I'd be using the Vampire Fangs instead of the Morbid Mask, and then I could, because that gives you a little bit of life steal. So if you man up on the Luna, like she might man up on you back, but if you have life steal, there's no way she wins it. Particularly not if you have Fury. You know, if you have all your kit available to you. So in this game, I probably would have went Basher before Satanic. But at the same time, probably for sieging purposes, obviously Satanic is better because you're less likely to get bursted by the techies, and also you can lifesteal from Satanic as well. But I think if it was a closer game, I definitely would have thought Basher would have been better because of what it allows you to do. You can man up on the lone droid bear, you can man up on the Luna, and there's nothing that anyone else can do about you because with a Basher you're just indestructible. And if, like I said, if
you go Abyssal,
I think Abyssal is maybe a touch too far. It depends how like what you're struggling with. Like, are you struggling with like getting kites, or like you need to catch them, like jump on them instantly? Then yeah, maybe Abyssal was different. But I feel going Basher back for the Satanic and then Abyssal is fine to do. It's just that what the Abyssal allows you to do is man up and keep on top of someone as well, whereas the Satanic doesn't do that. And like I said, if you were worried about not having lifesteal, you could just pick up the Vampire Fangs in against the Luna. But yeah. But like I said, tonight is your build SNY Satanic is great, but they don't have that many stuns, so that the status resistance paying off that much. Obviously, the Wind Ranger Shackles is nice, and a little bit of stun from the Lunar Beam, but it's not like they have a lot of, or it's not that none of them have halberds either. Like if you have the SNY and Satanic, the halberd would last very very short, very very short distance, but they don't have a halberd, so it's like you don't necessarily need the status resist that much,
If I have a Basher here, I would have.
Yeah, like exactly like Basher here, she gets bashed and she dies, So just something to think about. Because right now, like you definitely don't. Like this game is kind of simple if you think about it this way. All you got to do now really is wait for the next Roche and keep them in their base. But if they're able to kind of walk away with BKB, then they are a lot more. It's a lot easier for them to push out and come out of lanes, from that point of view. A quick thing as well, I feel that the level 10 talents is up to you really. I think they're both good. And if you're going Battle Fury, I think their agility is fine. But for the level 20, I feel that almost every Ursa I've seen always goes for the Fury Swipes damage because of how good it actually is. It just allows you to scale so much more. The enrage duration is nice, but really, for the most part, ever since Enrage took away the crit or the double damage from the Fury Swipes, Enrage is actually a little bit worse. So having the longer duration is nowhere near as important as the Fury Swipes damage. Like plus 12 is like, it doesn't sound like a lot, but in actual fact, it is a lot. So I almost always go for the Fury Swipes damage.
Because it's only 20. What is it level?
So it's 36. So what that's like 33% more damage. So I mean, and that's most of your damage, right? So if you were a carry and I could say I'm going to boost your damage by 33%, that's a lot. Whereas the enraged duration going from 5 to 6.2, it's it's really like it's just not a lot. And like I said, the enrage isn't as good as it used to be, because obviously before the enrage used to do more damage or help you do more damage, obviously, whereas now it's just status resistant damage reduction. So it doesn't.
I agree. I think my reasoning for it was more that I'm gonna go up high ground against techies. I'm just gonna enrage.
Yeah, I mean, like that's not a bad idea, and I can understand your reasoning. I just feel that without a doubt the Fury Shot is still better even in this scenario.
It's good, yeah.
So the Spirit Legs is fantastic. Obviously, really good on your hero.
I think this game is over.
Pretty over. I mean, do you have another replay? And we can.
I do.
Yeah, sure.
And I think it was some good learnings or insights. I think.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got a little bit of time left, so.
Shit! What time is it now?
It's about to be 3, or
Oh, but then we don't have much time.
No, it's right. No, like I said, I normally go over, so it's fine. It's all good. We've still got a bit of time.
So this game is really tough, but I feel like I should win this game. But I do really badly in lane versus cop, and I do some big misplays. I end up jungling at level 5, I think, or something. I don't even know if it's the right.
So you play Ursa again? Okay, cool. Yeah, I think. I mean, ideally, I mean, playing as an Ursa, the worst kind of matchups for you are like ranged offlaners. So Quap, Treant Protector. Treant Protector is a little, Nature Prophet, not Treant Protector. Is just annoying because you just don't like getting right clicked and kind of kited when you try and man up on them. So that's definitely your kind of worst matchups. So like general rule of thumb when you play against ranged offlaners is just, I mean, obviously in a match like in a lane against Quap probably was one of your worst matchups because you can never really kill her as long as she has blink up.
And I think I see the cop pick here, so I shouldn't even pick Ursa.
Yeah, I think in a matchup like this, because obviously, normally speaking, you play or you get 4th pick as a carry, right? So normally it's the 2 supports pick and then the offlane. So you always see your offlane. So I feel, as an sort of seeing the draft, I wouldn't pick Ursa here.
Actually, I picked 3rd in here. I think.
Okay.
I think Silencer was.
I mean, in scenarios like that, obviously, if you don't see the Quap, I think, particularly if it's an offlane Quap, because they've shown Earthshaker, so the Quap is most likely offlane. So I think in games like that, Luna is actually quite nice because she can rotate to the jungle early, and she's fine and she farms very quickly, whereas as an Ursa, and I mean, if this was maybe even a higher tier game or even like a pro game, what you'd normally see is the Ursa just be rotated to the offlane, but still play as a carry, but just not play against that matchup. Although Jug Lich isn't something that I'd probably like to lane into as an Ursa either, to be honest. So it's not like the easiest thing you can do, but for sure, I think if I saw Quap Earthshaker, I'd probably would be picking Luna here. because I can just rotate to jungle. But we'll see how it goes. So, because you're gonna, I think that this item build is fine. Obviously, I talked about Orb of Venom if you're getting to melee, but against a ranged, I think you want as much regen and ability to just hit creeps as much as you can. And also, I talked about obviously last game about potentially rotating to the off lane. I think in this game, you definitely don't want to be bottom. So any opportunity you can to rotate to the off lane, look to do it. Queuing up the magic wand, I think it's fine. Sorry, go on.
I think I usually try to do that in my games, but not often enough.
Yeah.
But I think about it. I've
Yeah.
tried it a couple of times, and I go there and I feed, and then I feel like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah, and in scenarios like that, it's good to just understand, okay, why am I doing this, and should I do it? And it definitely does also depend on what your supports and also your offlane is doing as well. But obviously, from a general rule of thumb, if you're in a bad matchup, like in a lane, and like, so the ideal scenario, and I do this quite often, so say perhaps I have even though I was a bad lane, I ended up killing the enemy offlaner, or I forced him back to base. If I force him back to base and he TP's bottom, then that's the moment I'm like, oh, this is the perfect time to TP top because the offlaner can't rotate to me.
Yeah.
Or that's the time. Or perhaps
even if you have a good, even if it's going well for you.
Yeah, if it's going well, that then it's a bit different. Perhaps maybe I can look to say, because as an Ursa, the good thing about your hero is actually you can normally defend your safe lane longer than most carries. But against ranged offlaners, that is not always the case. So yeah, it's just kind of looking about that and just sort of playing it by ear, because you don't. Because most times you do want to rotate to the offlaner, but not all games you can do it. So it just depends.
Yeah.
So good snipe on bounty runes. This is really good. I think I talked about it. I don't know if you saw the coaching session, but I talked quite in depth about bounty runes and how I'm not a big fan of consistent.
Half your HP.
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas this one is perfect because you trade and you end up getting a bounty rune normally. So you're queuing up a magic wand, and I think in this lane, magic wand is definitely good, because not only do you not have a way of getting mana back because you're not with a claim of a Cottle, but Queen of Pain is going to spam dagger on you, like all of this lane basically. So you'll get a few charges from it, as you can see here. I feel, although Ursa level 1 isn't particularly strong, when you know Quap has spec dagger and she walks up to you, don't be afraid to hit her and trade with her. Because
here,
yeah, like right here. So watch this. This, I think, is it right here, or is it before? I don't remember. Yeah, right here. So she walks up into your face, she's level 1 and she doesn't have blink. And because you're with a Jakiro, you don't obviously have to charge and race her to the tower, but you should definitely trade with her, because
the hits perhaps.
Yeah, hit her a couple of times, 2 or 3 times, because the advantage the ranged heroes have over melee is that they have the range distance, obviously, but they don't have the damage block of a melee. So whenever you can trade with a melee to a range, you should almost always do it, because the trade is almost always in your favor. And even more so, it's in your favor when a Jakiro is with you, because obviously dual breath, movement slow, attack slow, she simply cannot man up against you.
I agree. That's a really bad call.
So she takes 200 damage and you didn't hit her once. If you hit her 2 or 3 times, maybe she has to pop a salve. Now she only needs to pop a tango. And it's so obviously you do need to play somewhat scared and a bit pussy-like as an Ursa, because it's it's a hard matchup, but that shouldn't stop you from being aggressive when you can. This is good. Your support is pulling. You definitely don't want to be walking up here, because if you get Fisher blocked and daggered, you kind of just die. So support's with you this time, and she's pulled as well. So this is all good from your Jakiro. This is a perfect example. I talked to you about Earth Shocking for the range creep. Here, if you Earth Shock to get this range, you just die, obviously. So so sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, obviously. So just one of those things. And that's sometimes where that's the support's job to secure the range creep. So this is kind of good. This is where obviously you always want to have the lane here anyway, because it's the safest part for you. But the one thing, particularly in a matchup like this where the off lane is going to harass you a lot, having the lane here is really good. because you actually benefit from the regen from the tower. So a thing that you can do is actually kind of CS, but just in the range of the tower, because then you're always getting the armor and the regen bonus as well. And it's a small thing, but it does add up. So like let's have a look. Like kind of like right. Obviously, I've shot for this creep, which is fine. But like you can kind of drag creeps to pull it into like.
I understand what you mean.
So like, well, yeah, so you see it pops up there, and it's like an extra regen, and it gives you armor as well, and it's a small thing, but it makes a big difference. You're pulling your own thingy, which is fine. Obviously, that's normally the sports job, but if the sports isn't doing it, you should definitely do it. I think your lane mechanics are good for the most part. Obviously, that the trade with the quap could have been better, but you're doing okay in this lane, even though it is pretty difficult. Still fine. You kind of need the lane back. This is all good. Just gonna go through this. Yeah. Gonna need to sell. This is good. Yeah. Okay, this is fine. This is good. Yeah. And yeah. So yeah, I mean that was obviously bad from the quad, but like that's the only way you kill her. So and that was a good realization of that kind of thing.
Here I think okay we should go on this Earth Shaker because of this not there, but I don't know. I'm taking too much damage from that. I think. Actually, I die. Oh, this is really cringe. Like.
Yeah, obviously that's just. I mean, that is a bit bad. And I feel the best thing you can do here. So you've just killed the quap, and obviously you're committing on this Earthshake, which I think is fine, by the way. The thing you should think about right now is that I'm low HP and I'm low mana. You've just gotten a kill on the quap and you've just got a kill on the Earthshaker. If you die now, actually, it's not that bad because you're not missing any CS because you've just pushed in a big wave here. Like you trading here and just dying is fine. If this was me,
but I shouldn't TP you.
You obviously, like, first of all, the TP is absolutely terrible because first of all, you TP into vision, so he knows you're just TPing instead of running away. But if you die as well, it completely ruins your game. If it was me right now, I'd be man up on this quap. You have 8 stick charges and you have a whole creep wave. You might not kill her and you might still die, but you will kind of force the salve out. Maybe the Chikira can kill her afterwards because she's just blinked in as well. But you doing this, obviously, like you use your stick charges and you're running away, like, and obviously use your TP, which is the worst thing.
I lost there. We lost everything.
Yeah, like now is when the lane just goes terrible now because now you can't walk out. But yeah, don't necessarily like dying in lane is bad, but some deaths aren't actually really that bad. Some of them are actually kind of a good time to die because you had very low HP, very low mana. Like
that makes sense.
Free trip to base.
I should have just hit the cop and accepted it and then come back
and just take it, because let's just say this TP works, right? If this TP works, I don't think it's even that good anyway because what ends up happening here is, let's have a look.
Walk back.
So you walk back, obviously, but so you.
No. Well, I think I started jungling or something like that now. Which is really bad.
Yeah, but like, so let's say you go back to base, right, and you don't die there. So obviously you give up 175 gold to quap, which isn't that much. 175 gold is little, and I think you lose maybe 40 gold on your death there. Yeah, about 40 or 50 gold when you die there. So if you survive and you TP back, like you then miss like 2 or 3 creep waves of walking back, which is just terrible and horrible. So yeah, for sure you should just accept your death and die. Like it happens sometimes. You dying isn't the end of the world. I feel like obviously the lane is bad because and it is going to be bad because it's quap versus Earthshaker. But I definitely don't think you should be jungling. I feel like you should still be trying to contest the lane. When quap gets 6, it's a bit different. But yeah, you pull here. This is a good pull. You don't want to be walking up.
I think I jungle after. I think maybe I die again now or something.
Yeah, I think when quap gets 6, your lanes are very difficult. To be fair, if the lane is under your tower, you're not that threatened for the most part. But you can't walk anywhere other than you have to stay at your tower really, because quap is very close to 6. This is fine. So right now I'd be like clicking onto the quap. You man up. Bit risky.
Yeah.
But I think you.
I died from this, I think.
Yeah. it's gonna be close. You're right. Yeah, you're right. So now
Yeah.
your lane is kind of over. Because Quap is about. Oh, she isn't 6 yet. Obviously, Ember looks like he's gonna try and kill you. Because you're low. And this is a small thing. But when you realize you're going back to lane, so like you're here now,
Yeah.
I feel what you could do right now, right here. So this pull is really good, by the way. I don't see enough carries do their own pull, but this is fantastic because obviously you can't walk up here without dying. So this is good. But right now, if your mindset is okay, I'm going to be in the lane for a little bit longer, you need to buy regen. If you send out a salve like right now. And I know I'm looking at it from hindsight because I know what happens, but
No, but I know what's gonna
yeah,
happen when
you
I
have
get
to
back
know
there. I
what's
know
going to
I'm
happen
gonna get
really,
daggered.
because
I
obviously,
should have had a salve.
yeah, if you have a salve, then you can stay in this lane for another 2 or 3 creep waves basically until it happens again.
You buy a salve or tango
I,
or both?
I think I probably would buy both because the
Yeah.
tangos can be useful. Because if you do rotate to jungle, the tangos are quite good. They're quite value in terms of they give more regen than the salve. But obviously, right now, it's like terrible because now like obviously you survive, but again you
Yeah.
survive, but you survive on like 10 HP, and you're like, right now what do I do? And obviously you can't contest the creep wave, and like obviously the salve's coming. Oh no, the salve isn't coming. That was a wraith
No,
ban.
I
So
didn't. I bought the
yeah,
race.
so now it's like really awkward because now you're like, oh, do I run back to base? What do I do? Do I jungle? And it's just kind of this awkward position, and it goes back to really obviously we buy regen at the start of the game and you start to neutrals, but you know that whatever it happens. Like, yeah, maybe go back to base. I don't know, but obviously at the start of the lane we have regen to start the lane, and when you kind of die and come back, particularly because when you walk there, you have to have the same mindset. Like you wouldn't go to start the lane without any regen, and you have to realize that you're starting the lane again. You know, so if you're starting the lane again, you can't go to a lane without any regen. It's just stupid, really. And it's the same thing goes to like you wouldn't start the game without any regen. So if you're going to start the lane again, you have to have regen. So you need to be sending it out. Obviously, right now, like your game is kind of completely screwed because you're a hero that can't jungle really, and you can't contest your lane either. Right now, you have 2 options really. Either you can jungle or you can rotate and run top. And I feel because it's the way your kind of game is, I would probably just rotate top or go mid and hope
because Viper's having a really good game, I think.
yeah, I feel that I feel like you just hitting jungle creeps is kind of game losing because you definitely can't go bot because you're just going to die to the quad. But I feel that you, as an Ursa, you have to have a lane. There was one game actually. I don't know if I played it on this account, but I played an Ursa and I think I went like 0 and 11 for like the first. We won the game though because like every single time I want to show you. Where is it? Can't remember exactly where it was. I don't know if we won it. I can't remember. I don't remember, but we won the game, right? And I mean, luckily my mid was obviously my team was carrying me, right? But I had a really bad lane, and I was just feeding basically. But the thing is that like on a hero like Ursa, you always have to kind of lean into the feed in the sense like you're just going to die loads, and you just have to accept it. And you just hitting neutral creeps is you're not putting any pressure or any kind of harassment onto the enemy team. So even if you go mid or go top, like the best scenario is if you go mid or top and for some reason you get a free lane and you're able to right click creeps, that's perfect, yeah? But you might not be able to do that, but maybe you can get a kill. You might die, but you might get a trade and a kill, and that's a lot better than you just hitting jungle creeps because you have like and like you have to realize that right now your game is going to be absolutely terrible. But like this going mid or top is like a 5% chance play that it works, but you hitting neutral creeps like is a 1% chance like it's going to work. Do you know what I mean? So it's it's bad enough, but I feel like the best thing you can do is actually just go to a side lane. Obviously you go to the jungle, and I can understand like your mentality is that I don't want to ruin my other.
Even TP to the T2.
Yeah,
so I don't have an option of TPing to my safe if they rotate now.
Yeah, so that's true. Like obviously, if Quap TP's top now to kill the Pango, you'd want the TP bot because then you have a free lane, obviously, because Quap's not there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely wouldn't TP to the tier 2 here, just because like 5 seconds extra in killing jungle creeps isn't going to really help you. Do you know what I mean? It's not going to change the game. I mean, I think if I was in your shoes right now, I would try and convince my Viper to jungle or to help other lanes, and I would want to be taken over mid, because the Ember wouldn't threaten you too much because you're an Ursa. I mean, he'd threaten you a little bit because he's higher level than you, but it's still Ursa versus Ember matchup.
And Viper's won that.
Yeah, and Viper is winning the lane as well. So I'd want to take mid. But if he refuses, then I think you just have to go top. Because if you show top, maybe Quap TP's top, and then you have a free lane bot. Like you just have to do something. You try and force a rotation. You've kind of like had a hard start anyway, so you're not gonna just get back into this game like naturally. Like if you watch pro games, you'll see it as well. Like a team is down like 7-8k, and what you'll see normally is that when they're 8k down, they'll do like these crazy Hail Mary plays, and most of the time it doesn't work, and they'll just feed some more, so that 8k will be like 15k. But the thing is that like they're not just going to come back into the game by hitting neutral creeps. So the off chance where they go YOLO and do this crazy play, it works out, and then that 8k is down to like a 4k gold lead, and then the game is winnable and playable, and it's the same kind of mentality here, and it will go badly some games. Like if you go top, you could just go top and just feed, but it's like you have
the others are there, so I can join them and you to do something.
Exactly, like you have to try and do something. It's better.
If they weren't here, then I shouldn't be here either, right?
Yeah, kind of thing. That's the kind of mentality, But like you just have to. I mean, this is fine as well. Like you're going to take a bit of mid farm, but all this happens because there's movement on the map, and the first bit of movement has to come from you. But you TP bot, this is fine. We talked about this. Quap obviously showed top, and now you have a free lane bot. So now is your time to get back into this game. Like you're not too far down in net worth, but like you just have to get the ball rolling some way, even if you have to start feeding. I know it sounds strange and it's counterproductive, but when you have this bad of a laning start, like something has to give. So
yeah.
Cool.
I think that was really good advice. And I mean, this game goes on. It's a crazy game, but I think it's winnable in the end of it. But we don't.
For sure, man. But you just gotta give it a go.
But what about the cop when I jumped on cop there? When I came back to lane, I should have just creeped aggro, let her
for sure.
dagger me,
Yeah, for sure. I feel like when that initial bit where like you've died once or twice, and obviously when you die without a TP, like you're going to be very far behind in the lane, and you have to concede the lane a little bit. Like obviously, if, you're not going to threaten her, so let her get all the last hits, but you just need to creep aggro and get as much as you can. But cool, man. I hope you enjoyed and was able to.
Yeah, I did. It was some good insights.
Good.
Really good. Thank you.
I'm glad. But yeah, so I mean, if you I'm always available, so if you want to have another session, just let me know. But other than that, man, I hope you have good luck in your next your pubs, and go from there, man. And I'll catch you around.
Yeah.
See you later, man.
Will do. Have a nice day.
You too. Catch you later, man. GG. Peace.
Bye.
So, guys, that was just another coaching session that I've been doing. Obviously, been doing quite a lot of carry coaching sessions because I mean a lot of my YouTube videos have been carry-esque ones, but I'd coach from role 1 to 5, and I still have some availability as well. So if you're interested in coaching, guys, just send me a DM. All the details on the YouTube channel and like that. But other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed it, and hope to see you in the next one. Keep out and grinding. Peace.